Episode. The next 3 nights were an education in desire. Or dragged. Having a boyfriend who was literally the Springwood slasher came with certain complications. For one thing, Freddy had absolutely no concept of personal boundaries. Jade would be in the shower. Episode 4. The Demon's Protection. Episode 4. The Demon's Protection. Having a boyfriend who was literally the Springwood slasher came with certain complications. For one thing, Freddy had absolutely no concept of personal boundaries. Jade would be in the shower and suddenly feel the temperature drop, hear that distinctive rasp of metal on metal, and know he decided to pop in for a visit. She'd be at work shelving horror novels, which was almost too on the nose, and catch a glimpse of Fedora in the shadows between the stacks. Once, memorably, she'd been grocery shopping and turned around to find him standing behind her in the produce section, critiquing her choice of apples. Too bruised, he'd said, reaching past her with his ungloved hand to select a better one. If you're going to eat something, might as well make it perfect. You're dead, Jade had hissed, very aware of the other shoppers nearby. You don't even eat. An elderly woman had given them a strange look as she passed with her cart, and Jade had smiled innocently while mentally cursing her undead boyfriend's terrible sense of timing. But honestly, she loved it. Loved the way he appeared at random moments, always watching, always present. Loved that the barrier between them had shattered so completely that he could exist in her world as easily as she could dive into his. Loved the possessive gleam in his eyes every time he looked at her, the way he touched her like she was something precious, even as those blades caught the light with deadly promise. 3 weeks into their new arrangement, Jade had settled into a routine that would have seemed insane to anyone else, but felt perfectly natural to her. Days in the waking world, working at the bookstore, and living a normal life. Nights in the dream realm, where Freddy's world became their playground, and the boiler room had been transformed into something that was equal parts nightmare and sanctuary, and scattered throughout both. Stolen moments where he'd cross over just to see her, touch her, remind her that she was his. It was perfect. Right up until it wasn't. The problem started on a Tuesday, which seemed far too mundane a day for anything genuinely threatening to begin. Jade was closing up the bookstore, running through her usual routine of shutting down registers and checking that all the books were properly secured. The place was called Nocturne Books, and it specialized in horror, true crime, and gothic literature, which made it basically Jade's dream job. The owner, an older woman named Margaret, who wore nothing but black and had been running the store for 4 years, had taken one look at Jade during her interview and hired her on the spot. You have the look, Margaret had said cryptically. The one that says you understand darkness isn't something to fear, but something to befriend. Jade had absolutely gotten that reference and knew she'd found her people. Tonight, she was alone in the store, which wasn't unusual. Margaret trusted her to close up solo, and Jade enjoyed the quiet ritual of shutting down the shop. She was humming something dark and vaguely melodic, some song she'd heard in dreams that probably didn't exist in the waking world, when she felt it. That prickle on the back of her neck. The awareness of being watched. Not by Freddy. She knew that feeling intimately now, knew the particular quality of his attention. This was different. Wrong. Jade turned slowly, scanning the darkened store. The overhead lights were off, leaving only the security lighting that cast everything in dim amber. Shadows pooled between the shelves, and suddenly every one of them looked threatening. Freddy? She called out softly. That you? No answer. But the feeling didn't go away. Jade's hand went to her phone, thumb hovering over Freddy's contact, which was ridiculous because what was she going to do? Call him? He didn't have a phone, he was a dream demon, but the instinct to reach for him was strong. A sound from the back of the store made her jump. Just books selling, probably. Old buildings made noise, except Jade had worked here for 2 years and knew every creak and groan of the place, and that sound was new. Hello? She called, trying to keep her voice steady. Store's closed. If someone's still here, you need to leave. Movement in her peripheral vision. Fast. Too fast to be natural. Jade's heart kicked into overdrive, adrenaline flooding her system. She backed toward the front door, eyes scanning the shadows, and that's when she saw him. A man. Tall, maybe mid-30s, with sandy brown hair and a face that would have been handsome if not for the expression on it. He was staring at her from between 2 shelves, and the look in his eyes made Jade's skin crawl. I said the store is closed, Jade repeated, forcing authority into her voice even as her fingers tightened on the phone. You need to leave, now. The man stepped out from between the shelves, and Jade's training from the self-defense class she'd taken in college came rushing back. Assess the threat, look for exits, don't show fear. I've been watching you, the man said, and his voice was soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. You're always here, always alone, at night. I like watching you work. Oh, this was bad. This was very bad. That's nice, Jade said, still backing toward the door. Her hand found the doorknob behind her, locked. Of course it was locked. She locked it herself 20 minutes ago. But I'm leaving now, so... I don't think so, the man said, and he moved closer. Not threatening exactly, but purposeful. I think we should talk. Get to know each other. I know so much about you already, Jade. Your schedule, where you live, that little blue apartment on 5th Street with the gothic curtains. Ice flooded Jade's veins. He knew her name, knew where she lived. This wasn't some random creep who'd wandered into the store. This was planned, deliberate. This was a stalker. Stay back, Jade warned, fumbling with the lock behind her. Her hands were shaking, making it difficult to turn the mechanism. I'm warning you, I'm not alone. My boyfriend is imaginary, the man interrupted, and he smiled. It was a terrible smile, familiar and possessive in all the wrong ways. I've been watching you for weeks, Jade. I've never seen you with anyone. You're always alone. But that's okay. I like that about you. You're different from other girls, special, and soon you'll understand that we're meant to be together. The lock finally gave, and Jade wrenched the door open, stumbling out onto the sidewalk. The cool night air hit her face, and she ran. Just ran, her sneakers slapping against pavement, her heart trying to break out of her chest. Behind her, she heard the man calling, I'll see you soon, Jade. We'll talk more soon. She didn't stop running until she reached her car 3 blocks away, diving into the driver's seat and locking all the doors with shaking hands. Then she sat there in the darkness, gasping for breath, trying to process what had just happened. A stalker. She had a stalker. Some creep who'd been watching her, learning her routines, planning God knew what. The rational part of her brain said she should call the police, file a report, take all the normal sensible steps. The other part of her brain, the part that had been irreversibly changed by falling in love with a nightmare, had a different idea. Jade pulled out her phone and opened her contacts. Freddy's name sat there, a joke entry she created more for the novelty than anything else. Obviously, he didn't have a phone number, but she discovered that focusing on his contact and thinking his name really hard sometimes worked almost as well as shouting into the dream realm. She pressed on his name and closed her eyes. Freddie, she whispered into the darkness of her car. I need you. Please, I need you right now. The temperature in the car dropped instantly. Frost crept across the windows in patterns that looked almost like screaming faces. And then he was there, materializing in the passenger seat with that predatory grace that should have been impossible in such a confined space. Jade, Freddie said, and his voice was sharp with concern. What's wrong? You're terrified. I can feel it through our bond. That was new. The bond. Ever since their first time together, since they shattered the barrier between worlds, Jade had noticed a connection between them. She could sense him even when he wasn't visible, feel his moods, sometimes even catch fragments of his thoughts. Apparently, it went both ways. There was a man, Jade said, and her voice came out shakier than she'd intended, at the store. He's been watching me, stalking me. He knows where I live, Freddie. He knows my name and my schedule, and... She didn't get to finish because Freddie's entire demeanor changed. The concern vanished, replaced by something cold and terrible and absolutely lethal. His eyes, already unsettling in their intensity, began to glow with a light that had nothing to do with reflection. Tell me everything, Freddie said, and his voice had dropped into a register that Jade had only heard a few times before. The voice of the Springwood slasher, the Nightmare King, the thing that had murdered dozens in their sleep without remorse. Every detail. What he looked like, what he said, everything. Jade told him, the words tumbling out in a rush. The man's appearance, his soft, creepy voice, the way he'd admitted to watching her for weeks, the fact that he knew where she lived, the promise that he'd see her again soon. By the time she finished, Freddie's hands were clenched into fists, the bladed gloves scoring lines into his own palm that wept something dark and viscous but wasn't quite blood. He touched you? Freddie asked quietly. No, he didn't get close enough. Good. The single word was loaded with violence, because if he touched you, I'd already be pulling his intestines out through his mouth. Despite everything, despite the terror still coursing through her system, Jade felt a flicker of warmth at the protectiveness in his voice. What are we going to do? We? Freddie turned to look at her fully, and his burned features were set in an expression of absolute determination. You aren't going to do anything except go home, lock every door and window, and not answer to anyone except me. I'm going to handle this. Handle it how? Freddie's smile was terrifying and beautiful. I'm going to do what I do best, sweetheart. I'm going to give this stalker nightmares he'll never wake up from. Freddie. He threatened you, Freddie interrupted, and there was something almost gentle in his voice now, tender in a way that contrasted sharply with the murder in his eyes. He scared you, made you feel unsafe. No one gets to do that. No one gets to hurt what's mine and walk away intact. He reached out, carefully cupping her face with his ungloved hand. I told you when we started this that you're mine. That means I protect you. In dreams, in waking, in every world that exists. This asshole wants to stalk you? Fine, let him, because now he's got something far worse stalking him. Jade leaned into his touch, feeling her panic slowly recede under the weight of his absolute conviction. You're going to kill him. It wasn't a question. She knew Freddie well enough to know how this would end. Eventually, Freddie agreed, but not quickly, not cleanly. He's going to suffer first, Jade. He's going to know exactly what happens when we threaten something I love. And by the time I'm done with him, he's going to be begging me to kill him. Something I love. Freddie had never said that before, had never put that particular word to what they had. Jade felt tears prick at her eyes, and she blinked them back furiously. I love you too, she whispered. My terrible, murderous, protective nightmare. Freddie kissed her then, rough and clinging, and Jade tasted smoke and ashes and forever. When he pulled back, his eyes were burning with purpose. Go home, he commanded. Right now. I'll follow you. Make sure you get there safe. And then I'm going hunting. How are you going to find him? Freddie's grin turned absolutely feral. Baby, I'm a dream demon. Everyone sleeps eventually. And when he does, I'll be waiting. Jade drove home with Freddie's presence, a cold comfort in the backseat, invisible but tangible. She could feel him there, watching the streets, making sure no one followed her. When she pulled into her apartment building's parking lot, she half expected him to materialize again, but the backseat remained empty. His voice drifted through the car, sourceless and dark. I'm going now. Lock everything. Don't let anyone in. I'll be back before morning. Be careful, Jade said, which was absurd because he was the dangerous one, but the words came out anyway. Always, Freddie said, and she felt the ghost of a touch against her cheek. Sleep well, little Jade. I'll bring you a present when I'm done. Then he was gone, and Jade was alone in her car with her racing heart and the knowledge that somewhere in the city, a man who'd made the mistake of threatening her was about to have the worst night of his life. She went inside, locked every door and window like Freddie had commanded, and tried to settle into some semblance of normal evening routine. It didn't work. She was too keyed up, too aware that somewhere out there, her nightmare boyfriend was hunting her stalker through the dream realm. Part of her, the part that had been raised to be a good person with proper morals, whispered that she should feel guilty about this, that she should have called the police, handled this through proper channels, not unleashed a supernatural killer on another human being. But that part was very, very quiet. The louder part, the part that Freddie had recognized and claimed from the first night, felt a fierce satisfaction. The stalker had scared her, threatened her, made her feel unsafe in her own life, and now he was going to pay for that in ways his mundane mind couldn't even comprehend. Jade curled up on a couch with a glass of wine and waited. Miles away, in a small apartment that smelled of stale takeout and obsession, Marcus Webb was looking at his wall of photographs and smiling. He'd been planning this for 2 months now. Ever since he'd first seen Jade Anderson walking into Nocturne Books with her wild red hair and her sharp eyes and her beautiful, beautiful curves, she was perfect, exactly what he'd been searching for. Different from other women, special. And soon, she'd understand that they belonged together. Tonight had been bold, revealing himself like that, but necessary. The first step in making her see that they were meant to be. She'd been scared, which was unfortunate, but expected. Women always were at first, but she'd come around. They always did, once they understood how much he loved them, how much he'd sacrificed to be with them. Marcus poured himself a whiskey and settled into his chair, still admiring the photos. Jade walking to her car, Jade sitting in her apartment window, visible through a gap in those blue curtains. He'd been so careful, so patient, and now the waiting was almost over. He finished his drink and headed to bed, already planning tomorrow. He'd go back to the store, apologize for scaring her, explain that he'd just been nervous. Women liked men who could admit fault. She'd forgive him, they'd talk, he'd make her see. Marcus closed his eyes and let sleep take him, his last conscious thought of Jade's face. Then, the nightmares began. He was in his apartment, except it wasn't quite right. The walls were breathing, expanding and contracting like lungs. The photos on his wall had changed. Instead of Jade's face, they showed his own, but wrong. Screaming, bleeding, being torn apart by something with blades for fingers. Hello, Marcus. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, rough as gravel and dark as midnight. Marcus spun around, heart pounding, and saw nothing but shadows. Except the shadows were moving, thickening. coalescing into something shaped like a man, but not. Who's there? Marcus demanded, trying to sound brave and failing. This is my apartment. Get out. Laughter echoed through the space, rich with malicious amusement. Your apartment? Oh, sweetheart, we're not in your apartment anymore. We're in your nightmares. My territory, my rules. The figure stepped out of the shadows, and Marcus's bladder nearly let go. Tall, wearing a fedora and a striped sweater that looked like it had survived a fire. Face burned beyond recognition, twisted into something that barely looked human. And a hand. God, the hand had knives for fingers, each blade gleaming with awful purpose. You know who I am? The figure asked, conversationally, tilting his head. Of course you do. You're a horror fan, aren't you, Marcus? All those movies you watch, all those documentaries about serial killers. You know exactly who I am. Freddy Krueger, Marcus whispered, and his voice came out high and terrified. But you're not real. You're just a movie character. This is a dream. Just a dream. Oh, it's a dream all right, Freddy agreed, and his smile was terrible. But I'm very, very real. And you? You just made the biggest mistake of your pathetic little life. He moved fast, inhumanly fast, and suddenly Marcus was pinned against a wall that felt like meat. The bladed glove came up, tracing his cheek with exquisite gentleness. You've been watching someone, Freddy said softly. The girl, small, red hair, beautiful green eyes that you don't deserve to look at. You've been stalking her, scaring her, making her feel unsafe. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus tried, but the blade pressed harder. Don't lie to me, Freddy smiled. I can smell her fear on you. She came to me tonight, terrified because some piece of shit has been threatening her. And do you know what the really stupid part is? That girl is mine, my Jade, my woman, my reason for not tearing apart every living thing in the city just for fun. The apartment dissolved around them, reforming into something worse. A boiler room, hot and oppressive, pipes hissing overhead. Marcus tried to run, but his feet were stuck to the floor. She's special, Freddy continued, circling him like a shark. One of a kind. The only person in this world or any other who looks at me and sees something worth loving. And you thought you could just take her? Just scare her into submission? Make her yours? I love her, Marcus protested desperately. I was going to treat her right, give her everything she deserved. The bladed glove slashed across his chest, and Marcus screamed. Pain exploded through him, white-hot and impossible. Dream pain shouldn't feel this real, but it did. God, it did. You don't know the first thing about her, Freddy said, and his voice was cold. You see a pretty face and a body, and you decide she's yours. That's not love, you pathetic little man. That's possession. Obsession. The kind of sick shit that makes me look well-adjusted. Another slash, this time across his arm. Marcus was crying now, begging, trying to wake up. Here's what's going to happen, Freddy said, leaning in close. His breath smelled of smoke and old blood. Every night, when you close your eyes, I'm going to be waiting. I'm going to cut you, burn you, break you, and you're going to feel every single second of it. Dream pain is the worst kind, Marcus. It doesn't damage the body, but the mind believes it's real. And after enough nights of this, your mind is going to break. Please, Marcus sobbed. Please, I'll leave her alone. I'll never go near her again. I swear. I know you won't, Freddy agreed, because you're going to leave this city tonight. The second you wake up, you're going to pack your shit and run as far as you can. And if I ever feel you thinking about Jade again, if you ever so much as remember her name, I'll find you. Distance means nothing to me. I'll crawl into your dreams, wherever you are, and make tonight look like a vacation. He stepped back, and Marcus sagged with relief, thinking it was over. Then Freddy smiled. But first, he said cheerfully, let me give you something to remember me by. The torture that followed lasted hours in dream time. Freddy was creative, thorough, and absolutely merciless. By the time he finally let Marcus wake up, the man was a whimpering, broken thing, his psyche shattered, and his will completely demolished. Marcus woke up screaming, tangled in sheets soaked with sweat and piss. His body was unmarked, but his mind couldn't reconcile that with the pain he'd just experienced. He stumbled out of bed, nearly fell, caught himself on the dresser. And that's when he saw it. In his mirror, written in what looked like soot or ash, were 4 words. Get out or die. Marcus didn't pack, didn't take anything except his wallet and keys. He just ran, driving out of the city in his pajamas, not stopping until he reached the next state over. And even then, terrified of sleep, he kept driving. Freddy watched him go from the shadows of his rearview mirror, satisfied. When he materialized back in Jade's apartment, dawn was just beginning to break. She was asleep on the couch, the wine glass empty beside her, her wild red hair spread across the cushions like a sunset. She waited up for him. The thought made something warm and unfamiliar curl in his chest. Freddy settled beside her carefully, and Jade's eyes fluttered open immediately. Freddy? It's done, he said softly. Your stalker is gone. Ran out of the city in the middle of the night and won't ever be coming back. He knows what happens if he does. Jade sat up, studying his face. Did you kill him? No, thought about it, wanted to, but killing him would have brought questions, investigations, attention you don't need, so I broke him instead. Gave him a night he'll never forget, and a terror of sleep that'll follow him for the rest of his miserable life. He's not your problem anymore. Jade was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then she threw her arms around him, hugging him with fierce gratitude. Thank you, God, thank you. I was so scared. You never have to be scared again, Freddy said, wrapping his arms around her and pulling her into his lap. Not while I'm here. Anyone who threatens you, anyone who tries to hurt you, they're gonna have to go through me first, and I promise you, Jade, no one is getting through me. She pulled back to look at him, and her green eyes were wet with tears. You said you loved me, earlier, in the car. I did, Freddy confirmed, and saying it a second time was somehow easier. I do. I love you, Jade Anderson. My little nightmare, my impossible girl. You changed everything for me. Made me feel things I thought were dead. I burned the world down before I let anyone hurt you. That's the most terrifying and romantic thing anyone's ever said to me, Jade said, and she was laughing through her tears. I love you too. My demon, my protector, my Freddy. He kissed her then, gentle despite the violence still throbbing through him. She tasted like wine and sleep and home. When they finally broke apart, the sun was fully up, painting Jade's apartment in shades of gold that caught her red hair and made her look like something holy. Come to bed, Jade said softly. Real bed. Stay with me while I sleep. I want to wake up with you here. Always, Freddy promised, and meant it. They moved to her bedroom, and Jade crawled under her royal blue sheets, still wearing last night's clothes. Freddy stretched out beside her, solid and present in the morning light, and she curled into him with a sigh of contentment. Is this what normal couples do? Jade mumbled, already drifting back towards sleep. Sleep together after the boyfriend hunts down the stalker. We're not a normal couple, Freddy pointed out. Thank God for that, Jade said, and pressed a kiss to his scarred chest. Normal is boring. Freddy held her while she slept, watching the sun move across her bedroom walls, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing against him. He'd been a monster for so long that he'd forgotten what it felt like to protect instead of destroy, to care about someone's safety more than his own hunger. Jade had done that, changed him. Not reformed him, or redeemed him, or any of that bullshit. He was still a killer, still a nightmare, still fundamentally the same creature that had terrorized Springwood for decades. But now he had something to protect, someone who mattered more than the hunt. And anyone stupid enough to threaten her was going to discover exactly what happened when you pissed off a dream demon who'd finally found something worth keeping. As Jade's breathing evened out into deep sleep, Freddy closed his own eyes and let himself drift. Not into true sleep, because he didn't need it anymore, but into that space between waking and dreaming where he was most powerful. And in that space, he could feel it. The network of dreams spreading out across the city like a web. Thousands of sleeping minds, all potential hunting grounds. But for the first time in his existence, Freddy wasn't interested in hunting. He was interested in guarding. One mind in particular caught his attention, and he smiled. The stalker, Marcus, desperately trying to stay awake in a motel room 3 states away, fighting sleep because he knew what waited for him in dreams. Freddy reached out through the dream realm and whispered a single message into Marcus's terrified mind. I'm always watching, remember that. Marcus's spike of pure terror was delicious, and Freddy withdrew, satisfied. Let him run. Let him spend the rest of his life terrified of sleep, jumping at shadows, never knowing when the nightmare might return. That was punishment enough. And if he ever did forget his fear, if he ever thought about coming back, about trying again, well, Freddy would be waiting. He always would be. Because that's what you did when you loved someone. You protected them, fiercely, violently, completely. And Freddy Krueger had never done anything by half measures. Jade stirred in her sleep, and Freddy tightened his arm around her instinctively. His to protect, his to keep safe, his to love in whatever twisted dark way a nightmare could love. Sweet dreams, Jade, he whispered into her hair. I've got you, forever. And in her sleep, Jade smiled.